Hey guys, welcome back. So now I did the introduction to you guys, and hopefully you can hear me better because I didn't have my mouth up against the speaker. So this was I'm just doing a recap here. So this was the, this was the information in regards to the gel account. Now I'm using a Mac and I'm not using Putty. So if you're using a PC, then you're using Putty, so it's going to look a little different. So what I'm just going to do is just do a recap of logging into it. So mine is, and yours will be the same way. So it'll be, if you're using a Mac, it's SSH. If you're using Putty, you don't have to put SSH in, it's already selected. Your username at your username.it.pointpark.edu. Alright, so then you enter your password. Oh boy. See, I already forgot my password. So this is something that you should have got already, the free BSD. And you should have been able to log in and have a little location here, but also be able to go to your MySQL. So that is important that you have that established. The other part is once you do have the environment set up, your database is already established, then you'll be able to set up your thing, your domain. So I'm actually going to go in here and edit this. I don't want to go into it, so let's do this real quick. I don't want that. So if I right click on it and edit connection, you're going to do a new connection, and then you're going to have something like this. So when you go in here to set this account up, if I wanted to click new, I would come in here and type in my host name. So for example, jseaman.it.pointpark.edu. Yours will be the same, but it won't be jseaman, it'll be whatever your username is, okay? And then your port number will be always be 3306. Your username should always be root. And then you'll want to click on store in keychain and input your password is, whatever your password is, and then test connection. Now, the thing is, some people have problems with this and some people don't. They get it going right away. If you have problems with it, shoot me an email. Tell me what issues you're having, and I'll give you advice on how to fix it. If that doesn't resolve, then what I'll do is I'll have you send me your password, your new password, and I'll fix it on my end and then send it back to you. So it's usually what I have to do. But if you get it, that would be awesome. So once you do connect and you get the connection, so if I go in here real quick, we'll start using this next week actually. That's why it's important that you get this installed as soon as possible. Over here is a little bit of our databases. So this is be one of the projects that you have, one of the tasks that you have to do for the first week is setting up a database environment. And we'll walk through, I have a video to walk through setting up that whole environment, so it's not a big deal. But this information here is your server management. So this right here is just a way for me to connect to that MySQL account that I have established. So I'm able to go on here and look at my account information and see if my server is running, if it's having problems, what's the traffic on it, and so forth. And then I can look at client connections. I can see where I'm connected to, how many connections I have open up. Users and privileges are just you. This is your own environment, status, data export. We're not really going to use this in this class, but it's a way to export data if you wanted to back it up for whatever sample. And then the import as well, so you could use importing if you want to import data from somewhere, but we're going to do a different thing. Dashboard kind of gives you a nice little dashboard, talks about the network status, your MySQL status, how much cache is open, and so forth. So it has a lot of cool features with it. But the main thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be querying data. So in upcoming lessons, I'm going to teach you how to set up an environment, how to insert data, how to query data, how to write queries, the whole 9 yards. So it'll be pretty hands-on. I mean, there are information in the slides, but I like to provide hands-on, so I think it's more beneficial. Okay, so hopefully you've got to this point, and this is just something that you don't have to even be concerned about. But so just wanted to bring that up. All right, so let me again get started here. So I couldn't find the PowerPoint slide, so that's fine. We'll just do it in the PDF. So what we're going to talk about this week is the relational model. All right, so let's see here, 1 second. Model. So chapter objectives: learn the conceptual foundation of the relational model, Understand how relations differ from non-relation tables. Talk about the basic relational terminology. Learn the meaning and importance of keys, foreign keys, and related terminology. Understand how foreign keys represent relationships. Oops, see, I don't like it this way. Learn the purpose and use of surrogate keys, functional dependencies, and normalizing relations. Okay? So, what's an entity? An entity is, as it says here, it's something important to a user that needs to be represented in a database. Okay? It represents one theme or topic. So let's say that you work for a car dealership. I use a Toyota, for example. That right there is a theme. It's something specific. The specific part of it is it's a dealership. What does a dealership have? Well, it's important. So the most important thing they have is they have vehicles that they sell. Okay, so entity could be something important, and we could represent that database. That database could be everything that's in the that's dealing with the dealership, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, so let's see if we get slow here. All right, so relation is two-dimensional tables that has specific characteristics. Well, first of all, let's talk about what is a table. What is a database? Okay, and we talked about that last week. A database is something that holds information. So think of it as a box at home that stores information. What do you throw in a box? Sometimes you just throw items in there that, miscellaneous items that have nothing to do with anything, right? So it's just a box to store stuff. Well, a database is a way to store valuable information. So let's think about the car dealership, okay? What can we store at a car dealership? So let me actually start up I could do MySQL and kind of show you how to build a table, but I don't want to get too in depth, so I want to kind of just give you the concept of it. So I'm going to use Excel for my concept. So I'm going to bring Excel over here, right? And I'm just going to increase this font. So let's say that we have this database we want to create. And because right now it's talking about two-dimensional table that has specific characteristics. Let's just talk about one-dimensional. So let's say car dealership. We have one of the basic informations that we have is, let's see, we have make, model, we have year, and let's see, we have color, we have, so make, model, year, color, I have year, and let's say lot number, okay? So we have some specific information for our database right here. Actually, yeah, let's just put this right here. Let's increase the font. Cool. All right, great. So we have lot number, we have color, we have year, we have make, we have model. Let me think of something else. And let's say that we have manager. So that would be, maybe, I guess it could be lot supervisor. I'll say manager. And then let's see, what else can we have? So we have manager, sales manager. Let's put that sales manager. And then we have sales manager. Then we need something else. We need, what else do we need? We need, let's say maintenance or service manager. All right, good. All right, so we have just variety of information. So say make, what kind of make is it? Let's say I'm going to use a Toyota dealership, for example. So 4Runner. So I'll put it's Toyota 4Runner 2016 red. Lot number, we'll say it's on lot number 3. Sales manager is Mike Tomlin, and the service manager is Jeff Fisher. Okay, actually, yeah, Jeff Fisher. All right. Then let's say we have another vehicle. We have a Camry. It's a 2008. It's purple. Can't spell. We'll say it's on lot number 6 because that's our used vehicles. We'll say the sales manager's him, and same person still. Actually, this one might have a different service manager because it's for our used ones. So we'll say it's Bill Cower. All right, and let's just add one more car. So then we have a trade in here. So it's a Ford, and it's a we'll say it's a I don't know if they still make these or not, but Bronco, I think they're coming out with new Broncos. So we'll say it's a 2019. It is silver. I should say white, but we'll say silver. We'll say it's on lot number 1. We'll say the sales manager is a different person. We'll say this one belongs to Dennis Rodman, and his service manager is Jeff Fisher. All right, so we have some basic information here. So this represents, right here would be represent of a one-dimensional table. And why would it be considered one-dimensional? Because we have all the information here on one area, one table. This is our table, so let's do this. Insert. We'll say table name. We need a table name, so we'll say table name could be good name. We'll just say wow, vehicles. That's a bad name. We'll say vehicle inventory. All right, perfect. All right, so we have something there. It's not the greatest name, but it's something to get started, so you have an idea what we're dealing with. All right, let's see here. Oops. Why'd you go over there for? All right, so this right here is just a one-dimensional table, and we'll get back to that in a minute. Okay, so this is the table dimension like a matrix, which we had set up. It says rows contain data about the entity, so that's what we have here. Try to move this around a little bit. This is our entity, in this case, the make, and we have something to tell us about it. We have what's the model, what kind of models are it. So these guys would be our entities, or also known as our attribute. Cells of the table holds a single value, right? So in this example here, the model has 3 different values. It has 4Runner, it has Camry, and it has Bronco. So those are 3 different types of vehicles. Okay, that's true. All entries in a column are of the same kind. Well, what it means by that, so they mean something. So the model is something. So we don't have like a number in here. We won't have a year in here, 2009, or we won't have a birthday in here, like something like that. We're not going to have a birthday, and we're not going to have a value in there, like for the price of it. So let's say it's $45,099. We're not going to have that in there. You know, that right there is different information. So that information doesn't exist. So when you have an entity, you have to have something called a data type. Okay, so a data type is something that represents something, and I think we talked about it the first week. So different data types that you can have are, different data types that you can have, I'll name a couple over here. You can have something called an integer, which represents a whole number. You can have a decimal, which represents a decimal. So decimal could be, or a numeric value. Jeez, you hear that? Decimal or numeric. You can have something called a varchar. So a varchar represents text. It could be, and you have to put the length of it. So we'll talk about that in a second. And then you can have something called a char. These are just some. And a char is, let's see here, integer is whole number. So that could be like, let's say that we had over here, our whole number was like 55. Okay, you could have something like that. A decimal would be like $4.56. So you could have a value like that. A varchar could be Mike Tomlin. That's a varchar. Now, and then a char could be like, in this example, a char would be something specific. It has, you know how many spaces it's going to have. So let's say the state abbreviation is PA. So when you have a char, you're going to have char and how many spaces are going to be used. So if, let's say that you put 3 and you're going to put PA in it, here's what would happen. You would have PA, let me zoom in on this a little bit. So you would have PA right here, and then you have a space. You see what I mean? So you wouldn't have an exact match. You would have PA space. So if you were trying to do a match on something later on when you learn how about queries, it won't work because it won't be able to find it. If you have a varchar, you can say, hey, you know what? In this one, I'm going to use 50, And you can have like a varchar 50, and we'll talk about how to do all this in upcoming weeks, so no worries. But varchar 50, we can have something like this, and what that represents is we could fit up to 50 characters in there. But if we just put Mike Tomlin, guess what? It's just going to give that information. The chart is a little bit different. It wants to know exactly what we're going to use. So these will be some values that we'll use, and that's what it's talking about, using the same type of uniqueness, the same column type. Each column has a unique name. Yeah, you can't have the same name twice in a table. The order of columns are unimportant. True, you can put them in any order, but I always tell people, if you are setting up an environment, try to put them in accordingly that how you want to do it, because it'll make it a lot easier in the long run. But once you're querying information, it doesn't matter. The order of rows is unimportant. True. No two rows may be identical. Well, that is kind of a false statement. It just depends on the situation. So, for example, right here, these two rows are exactly the same. Because why? We're representing a make, and there's a chance that the make's going to be on there multiple times. Okay? So, for what we're learning now, this is a common way of doing stuff. Even with Mike Tomlin, we can have that. But later on, I'll show you a more unique way of doing it. A way that will save you space and be more proficient. Right now, I'm not worried about that. We're just going to show you how this works. That's what's important to me, is showing you the right way of doing something, learning it first time. So as you see here, we can have the same values. It's not a problem because there's multiple managers, there's multiple makes, and so forth. All right, so let's move on. This right here. So then it talks about a unique ID. So let's say that we added a new column here. And let's say that we call this column employee number. Okay, so everyone has an employee number if you work for a company. So we'll say, and this is where it gets a little tricky. So this is where the two-dimensional tables come in a lot handy, and you'll see why shortly. Let's see what we're using here. 16. All right, so all right, there we go. All right, great. So let's say that we have employee number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I hope that's not their employee numbers, but you get my gist. So that employee number right there represents Mike Tomlin, also represents Jeff Fisher. See where I'm going? So now it's getting really confusing. You could put employee number for sales manager, you could put employee number for service manager, but that's just going to be very hard to figure out later on. All right, so this I'm going to skip because this right here is just giving you an example of what I'm providing you. Cell holds. Okay, so this is what you see where here it says cells of table hold multiple values. So that's bad practice. You can't, like, for example, let's say that I had another sales manager and I wanted to put Dennis Rodman in here. Okay. All right, so now let me make this a so you can get an idea what I'm talking about here. Alignment, wrap text, yes. All right, cool. So if I went to query the information, and we'll talk about how to do this later on, we'll say select everything from table, which is vehicle, inventory, and I could say where sales manager equals Mike Tomlin. So look at this, how this is going to work, and we'll talk about how to do this later on. But this is a query that allows me to look at the database and get some information. So do you think this is going to work? No, because it's going to look for Mike Tomlin, but what it's going to find, it's going to find Mike Tomlin, comma, Dennis Rodman. So there is a way to make this work, but you can't do this. This is bad practice. So there's no relation there. So you never want to add two values. And when I said two values, you can have two values that are the same, but you never want to add two values or multiple values in the same cell, okay? Because then that gets a little hairy and that can make a lot of problems, okay? So just remember that. That's kind of all right, this is I'm gonna skip that because it's talking about what we talked about. Table, row, column, file, record, field, attribute. Okay, so a table is, let me pull up this right here. So And let's pull up this. Do I have anything in here? Let me see. I gotta find something I have. All right, we'll use this one. All right, so we have this. This right here is the database name, or also you might hear it called the schema. This right here is a table, and the table has different tables. Okay, so for example, I have actor. So actor has. Let's see if we can make this a little bigger here. Actor has columns. Okay, and then you see these columns, and then the columns have, oops, it has, you see right down at the bottom here, this actor ID, it gives a, or they'll also call this an attribute, and the attribute has a defined value to it. So in this case right here, it's saying it's a small integer. For example, first name, it's a varchar 45, so the first name can have 45 characters in it. Same thing with the last name, it can have 45. And the last update is a timestamp. We need to talk about that. It's like a date time that's in there. The date that it happened, the time that it happened, and so forth. That right there is an example of table, row, column, not file. Well, it could be file, record, or field, and attribute. And we're talking about relation, and we're not going to worry about tuple right now. So a key is one or more columns of a relation that are used to identify a row. So a unique key, a data value, is unique for each row. So you need to have a unique row always, or it'll make it difficult later on. A non-unique key is data value that may be shared. That's funny. Data value may be shared among several rows. A non-unique key. Okay, and we'll talk about what a non-unique key is. And so data we can have it multiple times. Consequently, the key will identify a set of rows later on. So let's show you what a new key is first. So in this case right here, let me just run this. Select rows. All right, so obviously there's no data here, so we'll have to use our. I don't know if I have any in this. One of these tables that has some data in it. I don't remember which one it was. It might have been my test table. Let's see. It might have been customer. Let's see. All right, yeah. So this is a customer. So this is an example right here. So I have customer number, last name, first name, phone number, phone type, state, whatever. So customer number is 1, 2. These are unique IDs. It represents something unique. So that would be the same thing with the employee number. That would be something unique. But this model right here is not going to work too well. And we'll talk about why it won't work. Let's see. A composite key is a key that contains 2 or more attributes. So for a key to be unique, it must often become a composite key. So you might have, for example, you identify a family member, you need to know a family ID, a first name, and a suffix, like junior. The composite key can be a mixture of 3 different values on there. So in this example right here, we could have a composite key that would be employee number. So let's highlight it a different color, like green. And we could say, and it's something unique. So we'll say employee number and sales manager. So it might be 1, 2, 3, Mike Tomlin, 4, 5, 6, Dennis Rodman, something like that. That would be a composite key. Why do you need it? Great question. Well, it just depends on what you're developing. If that's the route that you want to go, then that's what you do. So you want to know the unique value. Candidate key. It is it usually becomes a primary key. So a primary key is a key that, let's say that we had a new column here, and let's say it's called row number. So row number just represents what rows that we have. So it automatically creates incremental, and it automatically, every time you add a new row, it adds a new number, which goes from 1 all the way to whatever, how many rows you have, and so forth. That right there can also be your primary key, or this guy right here, your employee number, could be your primary key as well. So you get multiple primary keys. Primary key is that unique key that you use in the database. So you might have 2 of them, one that represents every row that you add transactions to, the other one which is the employee number. All right, so primary key, talked about that. Now, the examples in here, it talks about Microsoft Access. Kind of ignore that because we're not using Access at all. We're using MySQL Workbench. So I'm going to skip over that and go over to, this is Oracle, go over to MySQL environment. So this is something that you see here, customer table. So I could go back to here, and if I click on this, and I don't want to truncate it, so if I click here, I'm trying to remember. And yeah, so well, I don't want to do that either. Let's see here, 1 second. What I did here is I come up to customer, that's our table. I right clicked on it and I was looking for, and I'm going to do table maintenance. Just to get an idea here, I could do columns right here. And this right here shows the course number, the column name, the type, is it nullable or no? And we didn't talk about nullable or no. So what that means is, do you want to allow, if someone's adding information to your table, do you want to allow them to add a null value, or do you want that value to be automatically have a number in it? So for example, let's say that they were entering customer number. We want to make sure it's not null. We want to have a customer number. Course date, when's the course date start? That can be null. We want to have that. In this case, they have state, yes, but you could put no as well. No means that you could add stuff to the database table that is blank, but if you don't want it to be blank, then you want to put a value in there. So that's what it's talking about there. This right here is just kind of representing when you go to set up a new table, you'll select if you want it to be a primary key or whatever. So we'll talk about that later on. Surrogate key, a unique numeric value that is added to a relation to serve as a primary key. So it values have no meaning to users and are usually hidden on forms, queries, and reports. It is often used in place of a composite key. So it's kind of like the same thing where you have a relationship, and we'll show you how to do that at a later time as well. Table may be related to other tables. For example, employee works in a department and manager controls a project. So let's talk about foreign keys. A foreign key is a primary key from one table placed into another table. The key is a foreign key in that table. So let me see if I have it here or not. So let me go back to the beginning. You'll learn how to do this as well in this class. I'll teach you how to do data models. Let's see if I have a data model that I could use, for example. Nope, that's not it. Alright, so maybe that's not it either. I know I have to have one somewhere. Yeah, open it. Perf. Ah, what the heck? It just closed it on me. That's what I needed. Vehicles. Let's go back to home. Yes, I want to open it. Why is it closing on me? Alright, something's acting really weird. Alright, that was acting weird. Alright, so this right here is a data model, and I don't want to get you confused. We'll talk about it later on. But this right here is vehicle, and it has an integer right here, a value. So when I connected it to the driver table I created, you notice that it created a value here called vehicle, which represents the name of that entity, underscore vehicle ID, which represents the attribute for that table, and puts it over here. This right here is our foreign key relation. So that's an example. So when we automatically connect, it automatically creates a foreign key relationship. This will allow us to connect to this table based off that ID. So how it works is, say that we had a website and the person had to fill out information and put vehicle information there. Since they put in the state, the color, the year, the make, and then came over here and put the driver's information, it automatically correlates and adds a value over here so that there's some type of relationship. Okay, so that is a foreign key. All right, so I'm going to skip these diagrams because that's what I'm going to show you, and we're going to show you how to set that up here too. Referential integrity states that every value of a foreign key must match a value from the existing primary key. So in this case right here, it has to match this. So let's say that we come back over here and we want to set up this table right here. So let's say that we have, this table is called vehicle. So let's say that we have vehicle ID, and we have vehicle license, and we have state, and we have color, and we have year. I'm not going to put all the table information on there. Okay, so this table right here has to have this information. So let's say the value is 1, the license number is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The state is PA. I will say it's a red vehicle, and we'll say it's a 2008. Okay, so we have these values here that represent something. Okay, so these represent some type of value. All right, so now we have the driver over here, and we have the driver's license number, which would be, let's see. So let's say it's 24555 right? And then say we have the last name, we have the first name, and one more thing. Let's see here. We have the vehicle ID. All right. So I think I butchered the spelling of that, but I'm not worried about it. So we'll say we have Jeff Seaman, and the vehicle ID is this number over here. So we'll make it more unique than one. So we'll say it's 105, right? Then what happens is we have 105 here. So we want to make sure that we have a correlation of these two. So we'll have to have that. And that's what it means by referential integrity. We have to have the same value, else it wouldn't work. All right, so let's gonna skip this because that explains what I just talked about. Null value just means no data was entered. It has no spaces. A null is often ambiguous, and it could mean the column has no data. So you want to have data, but it depends, and we'll talk about that later. So I don't want to get it too confusing. There's a lot to process at this point. All right, so let's see here. Functional dependencies. So it's a relationship between an attribute on which one attribute or group of attributes determines the value of another attribute in the same table. So in this example right here, let me find what I'm looking for here. Think about that what is determinant? So it would be like vehicle ID again, or it's the vehicle ID is over here, right? And the vehicle ID is over here. So it's taken something unique that's in one table and able to link to another table to get that information. So for example, let's say that you wanted to, let's see, maybe a better example would be, let me look at this. You wanted to, all right, so you wanted to identify someone's driver's license number. So you have this screen, you enter the driver's license number and hit enter. Well, the determinant in this example right here, oops, can't move that. The dependency. So what it means is this guy right here is our determinant. It's the unique value that we're entering in. And now the functional dependency is that number is related to these values here. So it'll provide these values. So think of a cop pulls somebody over and he radios in, but now I think he has a laptop. So now he enters the driver's license, hit enter, and boom, the information comes up. So that's how that works, or what that is. So that's a determinant. Can it, skip that. Primary key and functional dependency example. Same thing as I just talked about. All right, so normalization. What's normalization? It's a process of analyzing a relation to ensure that it's well formed, okay? So if I go back to this table that we have set up here, this right here is, consider this like raw data, okay? Sorry. So raw data is just data right here. This right here would be a mess. This table right that we have established looks like flat file. So to normalize it, you have to come up with an environment. So you have to come up with entities that represents this. So you have to start brainstorming and thinking about, okay, how do I do this? So let's say that we create a new sheet. And when we start thinking about this, we look at this, we're like, all right, so how do we break this down? So the best thing is to kind of go through and figure out what things are related. So we know that we have make, model, year, color. So we can say these guys are 100% related to each other, right? Then we have sales manager and service manager. Well, those guys are related as well. So we could put them in their own table. So we could make that blue. Then we have employee number. So that will go with these guys over here. Then we have a lot number. Where is lot number fit in with this? Well, I don't think it fits in with any of these, so it's also on its own as well. So what we would do is we would set up 3 different tables. So let's say that we had table number 1, which would be called maybe vehicles. Table number 2 would be employees. And table number 3 would be lots, all right? So now what we do is we move this information in here and we break it down. So let's say that we have, table number is vehicles, and then we have what attributes that go with the vehicles. So in our example here, we have, we have make, model, and year, right? So what we would do is we would have our attribute would say make, we'd have model, and we'd have year. So now we need to define it. Let me make this bigger, first of all. Okay, and then let's zoom it in as well. All right, so let's say make, what kind of thing? That would be something called a varchar. And then what we want to think about is what's the maximum value. We'll say, well, we want to give it 50. If it's over 50, then we'll re-entertain it another time. Model, we could do the same thing. We'll say, we'll just make it 50 for now. Year, that's going to be an int for integer. That right there is a whole number, so we could enter in any year, 2005, 2007, but you don't want to enter 07 or 95 or 96 in. You want to enter the full year in. So that right there represents our first table, which was vehicles, and that was, I think this color here, I don't know, something like that. All right, so then we have another table, and this one right here would be our employees, okay? And also, you know what we're missing here is we're missing a primary key. So, no fill. So our primary key right here might be, we could call it row number, we could call it vehicle ID, and then we could have an int, it's our integer, and then we could say it's we'll say it's a primary key. So it's going to be our unique key. All right, so then we have another table, employees. So we know that we have, I think we had, what do we have here? Service manager and sales manager. So we could have, we'll put, let's see here, we could have more specific information. So let's see here. All right, so we might have employee ID. We might have first name. I'm not going to put all the information. I'm just going to put a couple things just to give you an idea. Last name. And we will say employee job. So what's their title? So we'll say title. Okay. All right. Perfect. And we're actually going to have a couple other tables I didn't think about. So we're going to have lots. So we're going to have the table for lots. So we're going to have table, lot, numbers. And then maybe in this case right here, we're going to have lot number, ID. It's going to be an integer. So that's going to be a primary key. We'll have lot name, lot number, sorry, and that'll be an integer, and then we'll have lot name, and then we'll probably have something else, but for now we'll just start off with this. Lot name could be 50 for now. All right, so we have a couple tables going here, so I'm just gonna give them different colors for now. Blue. All right, cool. All right, and now one more thing we need is another one. We have the employee title, but we have to have another table. And this table right here could be titles. Employee, maybe not titles, employee positions. All right, so now we have position ID, and whatever that is, that's an integer, it's a primary key. And then we might also have, in this case right here, we'll have title, job title. And then we might have other things in there, but for right now, we're gonna have it, actually let's make this change, job title ID. And then we'll have this as a varchar, okay? Oops. And we'll say it could be up to 50 as well. All right. So what we're going to do is when we set up this environment, we want to make sure that these guys are all related. So when we're inputting employees information, we're just going to grab the value. So when we connect it, we're going to have a foreign key relationship. So let's say that we have a value, title is number 33. Well, that is going to represent whoever that person is. In this case, we'll have employee numbers 2005. We have Mike Tomlin. And what that's going to do is it's going to have its own separate table over here for the employee positions. 33 means nothing to me. But when later on, when we talk about how to do a join on this table and that table, then we'll be able to grab that value and see what the name of that job title is. Okay? So this right here represents how to set up a right table. This right here is unnormalized. This right here is a normalized layer. Because now what we're doing is we're separating everything into entities that make sense. Okay? So that is normalization. And I'm going to skip this because it just talks about everything that I just told you. The other thing is first normal form, second normal form, third normal form. I will say that you won't use this one. You'll use the fourth. You won't use the fifth, and you won't use this. So the first through the four you'll use. So what are they? Okay. So each normalization has something unique to it. Okay. So like the first table that we set up, that was kind of like a norm, a form, because some of them represent unique information. So first normal form is, it could have, does it have an ID? Okay, so if in this example here, sorry, rambling on. So if we go over to this table here, this could be like first norm NF, but it violates some stuff. We do have a row number, we do have a unique ID, but we violate because we have two values in one, and we can't have that. Okay, so when we separate it out and we do something like this, oh, not like that, like this right here could be first normalization form, because we have a unique ID, which is vehicle ID, and then we represent the different values to it. So that right there will be a good example of first normal form. If you have second normal form, that would represent the other things that we have here, because now we're breaking up the tables and we're making it more unique. So that right there would be second norm. So used to asking any questions, but it's different when you're talking to yourself. So second normal form is it's a normalization form. So now you're representing multiple tables. So you're spreading out your information. So it's driving, like for example, we took employees, employee positions. We could easily put job title here and put it in here. We separate it out. So by separating out even more detail, that would be like your second normal form. Okay, so read the book, check out the different normal forms, get an update on it. It'll make sense because it'll be needed in this chapter. Let's see, talk about that. That's it. That right there. I don't know how long I talked. I talked too long. And that's 44 minutes of me talking, so I apologize for too much chit-chatting. But that right there is week 1, or week 2, sorry. So let me actually pull up this week real quick and kind of go over it real quick. 1 second here. So just want to make sure that you got everything that you're supposed to be doing. And then I'll quit talking. All right, so relational model. All right, so bringing this window over here. So this week, introduction here, activities, install MySQL in your learning environment, install MySQL Workbench. So I showed you how to get started with that. If you have MySQL Workbench on Mac's easy, but if you have MySQL Workbench, you could easily just go out to, let's see here, right here. It's a little tricky on a PC. So just download now. And this PC is a little bit different. Download now. If you get something about you have to download Visual C++, you get confused, let me know and I can walk you through that. Let's see here, what else? So install MySQL environment, so make sure you have that installed. Let's see, there's a summary. Make sure you submit your summary for this week, what this week's about. Make sure you take your test. This discussion, so make sure that you do the discussion, and then the assignment is in the book, chapter 2, regional lab case questions. So if you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to reach out to me. And also make sure that you have Slack set up. So real quick, so Point Park Slack, let's see here. I don't know if I have an environment set up for you guys yet. Yeah, I do have an environment set up for you guys. So we have an environment here called CMPS 160ON for online, and I need you guys to register. And right now we have just me, so I need to add you to this, but you also have to register. So let's see if I can add you. Let's do this. Let me just double check this. I want to check one of you guys out and see if you're in here yet. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. I don't know. We'll see. Allison Jones. Not to pick on you, but that's the name that popped up. So let's do this. Yes, Miss Jones is in there. So Allison. All right. Well, actually, you might already be on there. So let's see here, Allison. I just want to make sure that you have access to that. Invite more people. All right, so Allison Jones. There you go. As you see, I'll invite you, and then I'll make sure that everyone else gets invited. You'll get invited to this group, and this will be your unique environment. So if you have any questions, you know how to reach out to me. Thanks for listening to me chit-chat for almost an hour. I apologize. But like I said, I want to make this class as reality as possible. Have a great week, and see ya.